You might just have to stay away.
Stay
You may
away.
not want
Yep.
to, but it's really difficult to set boundaries
Hmm.
with people you have triggers with. And what you have to learn is your own self control.
Hello, welcome to this edition of Talk with Taz. Today we're going to continue our conversation with Felicia Brookins and Tenyeka Gibson, and we're going to have a new guest with us. We're going to talk about how the holidays can sometimes be a drag. We like to think of the holidays as a joyful time, and it is joyful, but for some individuals, it's a time of reflection, a time of still grieving losses that have occurred in their lives.
Hi, Tanika. How are you
Good.
doing?
How are you?
Doing well,
You're
doing
good.
well. Felicia, are you there?
Yes. How are you doing today, Dr. Gibson?
I'm doing great. How are you? How are
Great.
you?
Good to see
Good.
you.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you ladies doing this
I'm
evening?
doing awesome. Doing awesome. Thank
Great.
you for asking.
Doing great, doing great. I love your frames.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
They are too cute. They are too cute.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Shonda, I'm Teresa Smith, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, Dr. Taz, and welcome to Talk with Taz. I've had Tanika and I've had Felicia on the show previously, so they're old guests. They're like family.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we want to welcome you officially and let the audience know a little bit about you. You are a mental health professional, an educator, a life wellness coach from Jackson, Mississippi, with over 10 years of school counseling experience and a passion for helping adolescents and families thrive. And I guess you're like that ray of hope that we all need sometime. And
I
so,
try to
welcome.
be.
Well, I'm a former school counselor, so I understand. Enough said. Enough said. I understand. And we got to be a ray of hope. Hello, Sheila. Sheila Lalo, I think it is, for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. So today we want to talk about. I was saying earlier, as you guys were coming on, sort of prepping the audience. This is the holiday season, but for a lot of people, they are grieving the fact that someone that was in their family or a loved one, but the friends of family is not here. Also, people have had traumatic events that have happened that could have happened around the holiday season or is directly related to family. So when we come together at the holiday time, it's not a joyous occasion. And then it's just none of that. It's just the fact that with the life, sometimes people do get the winter blues.
Yes.
And so today we want to just talk about, those sorts of circumstances and then, provide the audience with some strategies that they can use to help them manage whatever their feelings may be or their emotions may be as we go into this holiday season. Um, so what I wanted to do is just sort of kick it off. I'm going to start with you, Felicia. Um, what are some common signs of what I call the winter blues, and how could someone tell if it's more serious, like depression?
Um, I would say, first of all, maybe from my own experience, having trouble sleeping sometimes, that can be a sign of the holiday blues, of depression coming on, or sadness. Either you're you're having trouble going to sleep, or maybe you're sleeping too much, because a lot of times sleep just helps you hope to help the day go by quicker, so you don't think so much about what's going on or what you're missing. So I would say, first of all, when it comes to sleep, either not getting enough or getting too little. It can be changes in your appetite. All of a sudden you really don't feel like eating, and so that brings about what could be noticeable weight loss. Because maybe from starting in September, October, November, December is coming up, and for you that's the holiday season time, and so September it may start all of that. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're losing your appetite. It could be maybe you're starting to drink more. Things like that can be signs of holiday depression coming on. Maybe you're getting a little moody, a little grumpy.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I'm about to have to deal with having my loved one gone, someone that I love not here, or I'm having to deal with all this hustle and bustle of the holiday, and I don't like all this commercialism maybe of the holidays. So that would be some of the things that I would say would be signs of depression or holiday blues.
Thank you, Felicia. Tenyeka, is there anything that you would like to add as we look at what are some of the common signs of winter blues?
Yes. Um, Isolation is big, when you are so active and outgoing. Then when you get around to that and what we call that seasonal depression, may not be depressed all year long. It's just like when that time comes, you get that seasonal depression and you can isolate where you were outgoing, you're no longer doing that. She hit on a lot of areas of not eating, not sleeping, maybe being grumpy, grouchy, all of it, because you have to deal with exactly what you no longer have.
Absolutely. And Um, Shonda, how can being self-aware help someone else deal with the emotional triggers at holiday gatherings? Because, when you bring a lot of people together, we're talking family right now, but anytime you bring a lot of people together, sometimes just the dynamics of different people can cause folks to be triggered. But
Oh, yeah.
particularly as it relates to holiday, family gatherings,
Hmm.
how can being self-aware help someone to deal with emotional triggers?
Well, to me, being self-aware. So when it comes to gathering with the family, we already know who we probably don't gel with, or who we've had some uh, discord with over the past year or even years.
Here's
And so I remember talking to a client this past week, and I mean the other week, getting ready for Thanksgiving, and they were dreading the gathering because their sibling, they didn't want to interact with their sibling because they felt their sibling was just toxic
Yeah.
and caused a lot of
Yeah.
problems. So what we discussed in terms of self-awareness, so we know how this sibling is. And so one of the things that this client mentioned that they were going to do was they were just going to go but stay their distance. They were going to stay their distance because they know that any interaction could cause them to feel um, some kind of way. And instead of feeling that kind of way, they surround themselves with other family members that they do gel with, that they feel comfortable with, that they feel safe with. And that would, cause the other person to not act as they normally would with that person. So you have to find that person of safety. You have to find that person of safety, and being aware of that, being aware of your triggers, what people might say that would
Mm.
trigger you. You have to already prepare yourself for that. And I tell people all the time, this thing called common thinking issues,
Yeah.
and everybody have them. Everybody having the common thinking issue. So what is your common thinking issue? You have to be aware. Do I feel like it's an all or nothing type of thing? Do I feel like it's emotional reasoning? Because I'm feeling angry, did this person do something to me? Or is it because of something that they said that I don't like? Not necessarily was meant for me,
Right.
but it's just a lot of different things
Right.
you have to become aware of and understand that, how do I handle it? And sometimes it's not for us to always, address certain things, because sometimes it's a provoking spirit, I'm going to say it, or,
Absolutely.
how
Absolutely.
they people come because they want to get a reaction out of you. So if you know that, then you have to say, okay, I know they're going to do, it's like playing chess.
You know the move.
You gotta be, you gotta know their move before they make their move. And so you have to move accordingly, where you protect yourself and you become safe.
And I'm going to keep this to you, Tenyeka, but to respond also. But I like you talked about the person who's going to stay their distance. You know, sometimes it's hard to stay. Because that sometimes is viewed as, oh, he or she is acting odd or they're acting funny. And you're really just trying to protect the family gathering.
Right.
But it's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because if you do that, then that's going to kick it off. But then if you're interacting with them, then that kicks it off. And it's almost like it's a no-win situation. So, Tenyeka, I agree with Dr. Shonda, but what else can I do? Because it seems like no matter what I do, it's going to get set off.
It might just be that. You might just have to stay
Stay
away. You may
away.
not want
Yep.
to, but it's really difficult to set boundaries
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm,
people you have triggers with. And what you have to learn is your own self control. You can't control anybody else. And if you get in a
Mm-hmm.
room with that person,
Mm-hmm.
that oil and water is not going to mix. And it's probably some
Mhm.
other, it happens to be the death of mama. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
But that happened way before mama
Yeah.
passed. It's just now ignited.
mm,
So sometimes we just have to stay the distance. I mean, if we're going to have real talk, let's have real talk. I
Mm-hmm.
probably can't just go with my family all the time. Are they coming? Well, I'm gonna have to stay home because you
Yeah.
have to protect your peace.
He
You
gonna be
have
there.
to protect your peace, and if you don't, and like she said, they're gonna run, they're trying to watch and trigger you and make you antagonize you. And you're just like, I knew this was gonna happen. So you have to trust your inner peace and self. Yeah.
Well, now, Felicia, help us here now, because you write about a whole lot of triggers. What are your thoughts about
Well,
this? You know,
first of all, I was listening to listening to Shonda, to Dr. Sessoms, and I was thinking to myself, that's Nadine and her
mm-hmm.
sister-in-law and her mother-in-law. That's all them. And that's trying to distance yourself and stay away. Well, Nadine was doing that, trying to practice staying away from them because they oil and water. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
in my book, especially in this one, in book 2, in Reprobate Ways, now we talk about family dynamics and getting together and holidays and eating and fellowship. And so Nadine is the person who you really need to try to avoid. But it's Kenny's birthday, and he says, I want my family to come over for birthday
mm,
for cake. So here comes now you need to stay away from them. We need this self-care
Mm-hmm.
mode. But instead, they come over because he asked. The sister comes, the mother comes. They're trying to be peaceful with each other at first, and then somebody slips up and says the wrong thing and triggers Nadine, and she comes across the table. She stabs her mother-in-law in the hand with a fork at the kitchen table. So that's the end of that. It's total chaos from that point. But again, it's best you probably should have said no to that commitment and just told him it's best we don't come, because we already know we're not going to jail. Something is going to happen. And so that made me think about that incident in the book, how Nadine and Kenny's family just do not get along. They don't like her. They hate that he married her. And so she knows that. And so it's always something. She's insulting the mother, and then the mother insults her, and then the sister gets in, and so we have those kind of things going on. We have the mother getting into it with Nadine because, like you said, we talk about family. Sometimes mother and daughter just don't get along. And
Mm-hmm.
so Nadine's mother, she's the person that just, you can strike a match. And she's on Nadine. And now we have another scene in the book where she's stomping Nadine to death almost in the middle of the kitchen floor. So these people, if you have these type of people in your family, it's best you say no to
Mm-hmm.
holiday
Yeah.
commitments.
Yeah.
Well,
mm,
Yeah.
I think you got something there, Felicia. Now, Tenyeka, uh, Dr. Shonda talked about she just gonna call it what it is. Sometimes it's that provoking spirit.
It is.
Mhm.
It is.
And it don't take much with Nadine and her in-laws. Don't take much.
No, it doesn't take much to bring that provoking out. And so I guess my question would be, we know that holidays can bring family arguments. Let's just be real. It
Yes.
Mhm.
seems like
Yes.
we wait until we get together at Christmas and it all goes to pot. We have a good meal, but sometimes we done had the argument before we get to the good meal. Or we have a good meal, it gets kicked off at the dining room table, like Felicia was talking about. So my question then is, what can someone do to handle family conflicts and stay calm? Because, let's say it is not even about me, but here I am. or it could be that I'm part of the conflict. But regardless, here we are, it's happening. What can I do to stay calm, to really sort of to handle the conflict and remain calm so that things don't escalate?
Well,
Let me
okay.
add in first of all that this may make you laugh, it may sound funny, but it really is important and true and an important factor. Uh, it's best to leave the alcohol out maybe when sometimes with family gatherings, because seriously, because alcohol can get somebody triggered, it can get them started, they're getting loud and boisterous. When well, okay, if you don't let Uncle Sonny drink, everything's gonna be okay. But if you let him drink, then he's gonna get riled up, and then some other things are gonna come up. So let's just leave the alcohol out of it. And maybe you can work around some way that you can have individuals not so much in the same space, close proximity with each other. It may be that Uncle Johnny got to sit down at that end of the table next to Auntie because she can better control him and deal with him, but he can't sit right next to Uncle Lewis because him and Uncle Lewis are going to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have to use a little strategy, moving people around a little bit in the household.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so Felicia, you're saying that we can't blame it on the alcohol, as Jamie said. So, and if it's going to be the
Well,
Sometimes it is
alcohol,
the
we need to let
alcohol
the
part.
alcohol go. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Sometimes it is the spot. So it's best to maybe, leave it out because it
Okay.
can jump things off.
Oh, it does it real quick too. Real
Really
quick.
quick.
I just want to say hello to Marshall Garner for joining us. Oh, I've got a couple other people I want to just recognize here. I think it was 79, Nez, and then Jesse Rayner said, peace is a blessing. Yes, it is a blessing. So tell us, Tanika, how we can have some peace, because it's getting ready to get, it's
it's
gonna
getting
get,
ready to get
it's gonna be hot and hot.
in
Yeah.
there. So here's the thing. This is something that we never do. We never communicate our feelings. We
Yeah.
keep them
Yeah.
in. We when we grieve, we keep it there
Mhm.
because we are people that don't you go out this house and say nothing. Well, not only can you not go out the house and say nothing, we can't even talk about our emotions because really, mom and daddy, auntie, uncle don't know how to deal with the emotions that we want to talk about of the loved one that's left. So if
Yep.
we could communicate, hey, honey, now I don't get along with your mom.
Yes.
I love you enough that I'm not gonna go, and I want you to understand that. But then the next step is when we're having these family gatherings, if we're going to be in there and it's going to ignite to something else, our mindset has to shift. What is our point? What's our purpose for being there?
That's right.
If we
Mm-hmm.
want to have something positive, we want to have that gathering, and they probably gonna drink before they get there. So the liquor it ain't got to be there, but they gonna drink it before they get there,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can, and that's their way that they're self medicating to calm down, meeting everybody else.
Yes.
So, and like you said, sitting and logistical things of moving people in different places and area, that's what we have to do. But also, if we're the one and we're going to say we have the sense enough to go in there and sit down and do what we need to do, we have to understand, this is my family dynamic. As ugly as
But
dysfunctional,
it's not.
as toxic as it is,
It's my
this is
family.
who I was born into.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? This is what I have. Hey, I love y'all. Your stay may not be an hour. It may have to be 10 minutes. Go around,
That's
greet
it.
people. Hey, I love y'all. And you gotta go. But you
Yes.
will. So
Now, you have never
Um.
lied with that because that's people you say. Go good to see y'all. Yeah, I gotta go. And then people, well, she always come and go. Yes, because if
yes.
I
With
don't come
this,
and go, you see, y'all not gonna be liking
we're
me.
gonna have
Because
a
I'm gonna get off.
memorable
I'm gonna lose
holiday,
my
right?
yes. I'm gonna lose my cool. So now, Dr. Shonda, what's your thoughts about this? Because it's hard to stay calm with these family arguments going back and forth.
It is, but I think it also goes back to, and I'm going to say the basics. And I know everybody's home is not the same. We have different we have different family dynamics.
That's
But I
right.
think what is missing from the family is basically the boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
the rules and
Mm-hmm.
limits to our behaviors. And it has not been instituted to the fact that, you know what, this is family, this is what we're going to do. Now, if you can't do this, then you may need to stay at home.
That's
And like
right.
you just mentioned,
Yeah.
you said 10 minutes. Okay, if that's all you can handle, okay, exit left, and that's fine. You
That's
showed your
it.
face,
Right.
and that's it. We just have to sometimes take on, like, some of our matriarchs and patriarchs had the power, but they also had the control, manageability. I'm
There
gonna
you
say
go.
that
Mm-hmm.
manageability of the family unit. So we know so and so is like this, but so and so don't get out of
Yeah.
hand.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because she's there or
Mm-hmm.
he's there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do that. So that's my take on it. That's my take
Yeah.
on it.
Well, I think I agree with you, and I think Tenyeka, you said about communication. I see two things happening here that I think goes beyond what we're talking about today,
Mm-hmm.
but it leads the foundation into why sometimes relationships in general, and then when we come together as families, it gets a little out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
One, we don't
Not
communicate,
at all.
and I just mean regular
Yeah.
communication. Just communicate, and
Right.
we certainly this is not a generalization, guys, but we have difficulties communicating about our feelings, whether
Definitely.
it's grief, whether it's happiness. We just don't communicate when it comes to our feelings. So then that puts sometimes uh, pent up, mixed feelings, anger, frustration, because we haven't done that. But we're born into this family. We know we don't do this, but I want more. And then it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to, like Shonda was talking about, the boundaries and the rules. Well, we know how we deal with each other.
Right.
We need to set the boundaries, but who are we to be trying to set boundaries with
Mm-hmm.
these folks? Because then they got a problem with that. And so then we find ourselves with Nadine, where we find
Mm-hmm.
ourselves being in those sort of circumstances where it's gotten out of hand. And people sometimes are coming to blows, there's argument, the words are flowing back and forth, back and forth. And so I think that, it culminates sometimes when we come together. But what I'm hearing is we need to start working on this stuff long before and figuring out what our family, we know our family dynamics. What can we do to mitigate them so that when we can come together, it's an enjoyable situation? Because there are lots of people who avoid their families because they know it's not going to be enjoyable. And I was thinking about what you were saying. Sometimes people don't attend events. And
Yeah.
they think by them not attending the event, that the event is, I mean, a family gathering, I'm saying event, guys, it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be a good event. And it turns out to be the best event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you begin to realize, not that you didn't already know, because you already
Mm.
know the people that sets it
Yeah.
off. But it's like when that person doesn't come, it's like everybody got along well. They talked, they chatted, nobody got upset. Nobody felt like somebody was trying to outstage the other person. And it's like you knew that person was the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, but we know they're the problem, but we still gonna have to deal with them. And that's
Yes.
the hard part of it. How do you deal with it when you know without a doubt now they the problem, but you got to
Mm-hmm.
deal with them, and they could be the matriarch, they could be the patriarch, they could be a sibling. How do you now? Because
Okay.
we've talked about ways,
Okay.
but let's let it be a matriarch or a patriarch like Mama Ruth. How do you now deal with these people and have a good family gathering without it going to the left? Now, let me just read what Jesse Ray said first before get you guys to respond on that. Some are not where they need to be regarding their emotional intelligence.
Mm.
They're not.
Yeah.
And,
They're
I'm really big on emotional intelligence, just Ray, but they don't even know what that is. So they
mm-hmm.
claim. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to use that language. They know it means to control yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, some of them cannot, and some of them don't want to because they still play that victim role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
know the people that I'm talking about in the family that play the victim role is always, they don't say, woe is me, but everything that they say and do, they playing that victim card. And because they play the victim card so much, that then causes all of the other stuff to then jump off. But you guys, tell me, what are your thoughts about that?
Um,
Um, you want to go?
yeah.
Felicia, you can go
I
ahead.
Okay.
I want to just add this real quickly. While we're talking about these family dynamics and holiday blues and depression, that it is important to also factor in the grief
Mhm.
that comes from the loss of a loved one, which can also be a contributor to someone, lashing out or acting mean and moody when they're with the family, because grief can be a big part of it. You mentioned, Dr. Taz, about the matriarch. Let's just say, at some point you have a grandmother or grandpa that passes. And so you're trying to do the family gathering thing, but you have right here in the middle of all of this, you have grief. Many people that are still in grief and that are missing grandma or grandpa from being there. And it just seems different for them. So grief can be a big part of that. And I would say personally, in that case, it may be a good idea. Maybe if the family would try to come together and set some type of tradition in place in memory of that person, that may help with the emotions some, so people don't get so moody with each other, or chew people out.
Mhm.
Again, all because we're missing grandma or grandpa, as Shonda said, the one who had the ability to set the rules and manage the family, and you knew how to act when you came in their presence. But again, they're missing now. So then we have this grief piece that we have to look at. And so it may be a good idea, again, as I said, maybe, let's have a candle memorial. Let's have a moment of silence in memory of them. And maybe just acknowledge, because for some people they may get upset and say, well, you all act like, you don't even realize
Mm-hmm,
grandma and grandpa are
mm-hmm,
not here. Y'all act like
mm-hmm,
they didn't die. Y'all act like they're not here.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
let's do something to just take a moment and honor them. And maybe that would help some with the grief that can be a part of this whole disruption when it comes to the holidays.
Yes. Um, we all process it differently. And Big Mama, Medea, they all had different relationships with all of their grandchildren and
Right.
children. And they love them the same, but they loved them differently. So, and how we can break that and come in and have this conversation with the one, whoever is the wisest after out of the bunch, pull them aside. Because honestly, when grandmama and them are gone,
Right. It changes.
nobody, the whole shift, the whole dynamic, it's a domino effect. It's do 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 do. Because you
Mhm.
knew how to come in and conduct yourself. You knew how to take your head off in that
Yes.
house. You knew not to let your voice raise. And if you was drunk, you had sense enough to sit on that porch until you sobered up. Then you
Mhm.
came in.
Step
Okay.
outside.
But now they're not here. So I'm gonna be myself, but that's still no excuse for you to come in like that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back to this. We having real talk. So we have to call people on their stuff.
Yeah.
That's what's been happening. Big mama has been covering. Everybody
Yes.
covers up and we're all tolerable and we should
Mhm.
we should. But listen, let's go to them when you call them because I love you enough. I expect here's your you can come in and have this conversation. I want you in on this. How you want to remember grandmama?
Mhm.
What you want to do about great big mama, Medea? What you want to do about that? How would you like to keep this memory going and make them feel included?
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
what it is. After they leave, they're gone, they've transitioned on. Those people need to come in and they need to feel included and loved. And we have now look now, when you come in here, I can't have
Our
you
grandma
all,
wanted you to
like
act.
come on now. I love you. Like grandma wants you to come in. You got to and then that's when the wisdom has to come in place. So these are our families. We know what we need to do. You can't go in there and ignite fire with fire. It's going to be a combustion. It's going to
Right.
poof.
Exactly.
So someone has to have the wisdom of Big Mama
Mhm.
and Granddad,
Exactly.
So that's, I say that.
Shonda, did you want to respond to that also?
I totally agree. Totally agree. And then when you mentioned before, when we talk about some matriarchs, some patriarchs, and they may be the problem.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that stems from what their
Mhm.
experience is and what they were affected by, whether it was their childhood, even their adulthood. And so they have brought it into the lives of their other family members.
Yes.
And so that right there, and I see a lot of where, well, this happened to me, so I'm not going to let this happen to me anymore. So I take on this
Mhm.
mindset, this attitude, and all of this. And this is why I'm
I
doing
think
what I'm
I'm
doing.
doing.
I'm not saying that but my behavior is speaking out loud. And even though you may be the matriarch, the patriarch, somebody, as with love, needs to come in and say, you know what, can we talk?
Yeah.
Can can we talk? And I was just telling somebody the other day, when it comes to those who are older, just simply saying, well, how was your childhood? What were some of the things that you did? That's a way to get conversation started so that you can learn. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to agree with what somebody's doing, what somebody's saying, but to try to understand, that doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
Right.
Try to understand from,
Right.
let's see, I wonder what was their experience that's caused them to be the way that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then meet them there.
Yeah.
Meet them
Meet them where they
there.
are. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
And that's
So,
Nadine and Mama Ruth. I will say that that is their dynamic. I say all the time in my book, when it comes to Mama Ruth, she's the only person that can do anything with Nadine because Nadine came from her. So Nadine is passing along the same thing to her daughters. But Mama Ruth was a person that was abused, that had a rough upbringing. And so she brought that into her marriage and her role
yeah.
as a mother with Nadine. And so Nadine has carried that on into her family. And so if you're not careful, we're going to have these three girls doing the same thing, repeating that same pattern. And so much so to little B, when it's their turn to be the one setting up the dinner or organizing the event, and the aunt and the other grandmother come over, it will be some of the same things going on from the daughters now, because they saw what went on with you and mama. And so it just keeps going. So somebody has to say, like you said, Shonda, let's, and that tries to be Kenny, step back, let's talk about it, what's really going on here. But then there are sometimes people just don't, they're so fueled up, they don't even want to hear that. But that's exactly what it's going to take. You may have to sit down and say, well, why were you this way? In one part in my book, the sisters are talking about it, and the older sister is trying to explain to the middle sister some things about grandmother based on some pictures that they found in the photo album. Well, that helps to kind of explain who she was and why she was that way.
Absolutely, Felicia. I want to say welcome to Jazz to Musique for joining us, and Evan Hook 30 for joining us. And then Jesse Rayner said, when you know better, you do better after all the future generation is watching, which is what's happening in the book. You've got those young girls, three different next generations. You want to look at by age. But at least the next generation, they're watching what Nadine and Mama Ruth is doing. And some of them are already beginning to mimic the same behavior. And it's like, we have to take responsibility. And this is going to sound cold, and it's okay. Thank you, Tyra Solitude, for joining us, but I'm going to say it anyway. At what point do we stop giving people a pass for grief? Because I know grief is a process, but there are people who lost loved ones 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Lost loved ones 60 years ago, 55, 56, 57 years, 60 years ago. And they are the problem.
Yeah.
It's all, sometimes, because I think about some of these people, it's like their emotional development stopped when they lost that person. So they go through the motions of doing what they think is appropriate. But when they do it, there's no substance there. So what do you mean, Taz? It comes across as if it's the Stepford Wives. I may be dating myself now, but the robotic women. Yeah. So there's no emotion there, and when they do the emotion, it's not real emotion. Meaning you don't see it in their eyes. It's forced. They think that what they're doing is, well, let me take that back. I don't know what they think.
Okay.
But for those who observe them, they're able to see that what the person is doing is not real. And then those individuals sometimes become the problem because think about it, they have set up their routines, which is going to lead to my next question. They set up their routines of how things are supposed to be. Well, that may have worked when your family was younger, when your children were younger. But as your children get older, they have their families, they want different routines, they want different rituals, different ways that you celebrate the holidays. Well, if that's what that person has held on to, which has helped them to remain sane, quote unquote, their whole life, sometimes because people are, everybody else is evolving, in essence. Everybody's evolving except for that person. How do you manage those sort of situations? Because you have to see them, but everybody else is evolving and they're not evolving. And they may understand what's happening, but they're not able to make the change. They play the victim card, the woe is me card.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
Dandria, Sheena, Sinead, thank you for joining us. They play that
Mm,
victim card. How
I
do we
think
help
blending.
folks to deal with that?
I,
What now?
I think trying maybe to try to first of all maybe try to blend uh old traditions and new traditions. When we first sit down at the table about this thing, well, okay, we know, that grandma always set the table like this and we always did this first, or we always prayed first and then we did this or did that. Well, you may not want to do the entire traditional way, but okay, well, we'll continue to set the table like this first, and we'll pass the food this way, and we'll cook the turkey this way, in memory of grandma. But we're also going to add
Yes,
this year, and yeah, maybe we usually go for a walk, but how about this year? We'd like to play Twister, or we would like to do a game night or
mhm,
something like that. But yeah, we can still get up under grandma's quilt like we used to, and get by the fireplace and talk.
mhm,
So blending may be
mhm.
a good way to kind of help those who are still holding on and grieving. And also, I think coming down to the point that you may have to, in a loving way, say you may want to talk to somebody professionally about that to help you through this grief that you've been holding on to for so long, because it's affecting the family in a negative way. But it's got to be said,
Okay.
it should be said in love.
Yeah. So I'll take a different spin on it. I'm going to deal with the narcissistic person that is dealing with attention seeking. And
Mm.
that comes from because they've had this all the time. And so it's going to be my way. And we can even tell the person in our
Mhm.
loving, kind way, and you want to whisper in their ear, baby, you need some help, but you got, and then they may take that in a way of like, you saying something's wrong with me. So what we have to do when there is a behavior that's happening, we have to first come at that behavior, but also redirect it in a sense. So we're gonna, and I agree with you, Felicia, we should try to incorporate new traditions, but maybe some traditions that are not so high impact or stressful, something that's a little bit, okay, I don't know, we can set the table, because you can set the table. If she's been grieving, if you're telling me, Dr. Todd, this person's been grieving and still grieving for 60 years,
Yes,
that's okay, because we grieve differently.
yes,
And that is okay. We can grieve as long
mhm,
as, hey, it could take 100 years.
yes,
However, that person and her loved ones will have to sit around, and she'll have to know that she is making this negative impact on people.
mhm, yeah,
So, and I go back to community. I'm that therapist that's, I'm kind of like, I'm just straightforward.
mhm,
So you have to like look at this. Look at your children are wanting to go do this. What is the common denominator here?
mhm,
We have
mhm,
to and we love you, but you must be ginger and say it with love, because that makes you go home and rest peacefully
yes,
at night.
yes,
So you don't want to go off when she's going off. No, you're like, hey, I love them just like this. But life, it does take a twist.
mhm,
I don't know when the life is going to take a twist. That's that question there.
mhm,
I'm not God, thank you,
mhm,
Jesus. But it's going to take a turn when she's ready to accept that she could still hold on to whatever that is she wants to hold on to. And whatever that is she's holding on to, let's incorporate that in what we're trying
yes,
to have now. I
absolutely.
respect what you feel and I respect what you're saying. We love you enough,
Mhm.
but we want to try something a little different.
Okay.
We just something a little different,
Mhm.
So I'm respecting her in that place, because grief is so, gets up and down. One minute you
Mm.
you real good, and next thing you hear a song
You
and you
got it.
smell some apple
Yep,
pie, you done broke all the way down in Walmart parking lot, right?
exactly,
And they trying to call security. They don't know that
exactly.
you've had that moment. But also talking. We need to communicate what we are feeling. And like, you can't keep walking around and because that means you're enabling that behavior yourself.
Yeah.
So now I need to be able to say, look, I love you enough to say we got to do something different because you're killing us.
And you're right. And I go back to what Shanae Ray has said. It's about the emotional intelligence, and really it's about that self-regulation. And
Yeah.
sometimes uh, people don't regulate well, but
Mm-hmm.
we have to. We still have to support them,
That's
but
right.
and we love them. And we support them, but also you mentioned narcissistic behavior, and it is narcissistic behavior. And you also have to get to a point where if things don't, we do all the things that you talked about, you guys have talked about, and if the needle doesn't move, you then have to protect yourself
There
because we've talked
you
about that
go.
also. You got to protect yourself, and you have to get to a place where you're okay being there for 10 minutes, 15, no longer than an hour, if you can manage an hour, and
Prioritize
then
your own
yes,
self-care. That's right.
because you don't want the holidays to bring you down and all you did was go to Big Mama's house, whomever's house,
Right.
and you were feeling fine. Hadn't
Yeah.
had a nip or nothing, but as soon as you
Right.
got there good, it was like, oh God, I should have had a nip. And that says then you don't want to start self-medicating because
Correct.
of them. And so, I think that, the things that we're talking about are so real and so important as folks try to navigate this time. But I want to talk a little bit about what are some easy ways to find support or to connect with others during the holidays, especially for people who feel alone. And I'm going to make this statement. I really don't know. Well, no, I'm not going to make this statement. It'll probably just come. How do we define alone? What are you guys' definition of alone?
I think that really that can just vary depending on the way the person sees something, their mindset or observation of what alone is to them. Because again, as we know, you could be sitting in a room full of people
And be
Can
and
be
alone.
just feel like you're not seen, you can't relate, you
alone.
can't connect to them, and
Mhm.
really you just don't want to be there because you're already staying depressed. And so for you, you could feel alone and unseen in a room full of people. So I think it just depends on, how you observe it or your perception of being alone. Is it really just no one in the room, or is it more a mindset or emotional heart thing?
Well, from the question, the way I want us to approach it is not being alone in a room with people, because I don't have a problem being alone. I mean, being physically alone. I don't have that problem, but I know that people do have that problem of being alone, physically alone. And for them, the holidays is a very trying time
Mm-hmm.
because they're not connected with anyone. And so, what ways, how could those individuals, some easy ways for them to find support or connect with others during the holiday season without manipulating or using those people in order not to be alone? Because again, if you're using them to be alone, that to not be alone, that's wrong. That's
Mm-hmm.
wrong because you're taking advantage of those people. And to me, you need to deal with your issue around why you can't be alone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Okay. So go ahead, Dr. Sean. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, sometimes maybe they can you may look on events on social media or something like that and find maybe something that you enjoy that you would like to do
Mhm.
to attend. Like maybe something is going on at the museum, maybe there's an exhibit for the holiday, and you may say, well, I really like that. And so you can go to that and you'll be around people and get to connect and network and just make yourself feel good being in an environment that you enjoy. And then maybe you won't feel, so alone by yourself because you can go and come
Mhm.
as you like. And so you can interact with people, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be, committed to be right there with them all the time. And so that may be something that they can do to combat feelings of loneliness when you feel that there's nobody there that loves you or that you can talk to or make memories
Mm-hmm.
with. There's nothing I can do to enjoy the season. Find something that you enjoy. Look for events that maybe you could attend.
That's
So I,
a great idea, Felicia.
yeah.
Hmm.
I deal with a high population of military people who've been deployed here and there, and they don't have their family. We have those
Hmm.
students that are by themselves. They find that kinship amongst their leadership, maybe going out, going to their homes,
Hmm.
or here we go back to communication. I don't want to be left alone
Mm.
for the holidays, and someone may
Hmm.
offer, "Hey, well, come on over. Let's go do this," and understanding that. Their home, their dynamics is going to be different. But also, you mentioned the manipulator. We don't know you don't know you're manipulated till you're manipulated, and we don't. That I mean, it's not written here. Their
Yeah.
behavior
Mm-hmm.
definitely says that. So when that opportunity comes, and you realize that you've offered them, you probably won't offer them to come in again.
Mm-mm.
But for
Yeah.
that one that is genuinely suffering with depression and
Yes.
anxiety and dealing with grief, be
Hmm.
kind enough to set another plate.
Absolutely.
That's it for another person.
I agree with that. Shonda?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, what you mentioned just now in terms of that person, don't want to be alone. First and foremost, they have to become self-aware, as we talked about in the beginning, and it could stem from abandonment or rejection from somewhere in their life.
Hmm.
And so becoming self-aware and understanding what's going on is the first step to them recognizing, okay, this is an issue and I need to deal with those inner things that are going on within myself.
Hmm.
And thank you for saying that, Shonda, because again, I know we're talking about the winter or the season of blues, but sometimes it's our baggage that's causing it to culminate at this time. And that self-awareness, if you know that you have a problem being alone, you need to figure out why you got a problem being alone. I mean, come on.
Hmm. Right.
Because that drives, you think about it, that drives all of your decisions.
Absolutely.
And you can try to balance the scale. Maybe 60% of the time you're going to make good decisions. But
Hmm.
what about those 80% of the times where you don't make a good decision? And
Hmm.
so because you're acting and making decisions out of this, I don't want to be alone
Erratic. Hmm.
mentality. And then
Hmm.
you wonder why your life has unfolded the way it's unfolded because you didn't deal with whatever it was that was manifesting within you that you could not be alone. And I think that's a common thing that I'm hearing as we have our dialogue about family dynamics and all of the things that happens, being aware of who you are, what's important to you, what things that you still need to take care of so
Right.
that
Right.
you are
Correct.
a secure, functioning person so that regardless of when you go into your family dynamics for any gathering,
You.
you're able to use your emotional intelligence, as we talked about, and self-regulate. And if you see that what your plan was isn't working, you know how to exit
Exit
stage left and wish them
left.
a Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, and
Yeah.
save yourself a whole lot of grief.
Yeah. It comes with that. Self-assessing and having that insight,
Yes.
and sometimes that development comes really late, and like they can't believe that this is what they were doing in the past with that childhood trauma, that abandonment issue, those things. If that's really what happened, that's what I was so when they start having that insight, they're able to execute better, but also they're okay to saying, you know what, no is a good
Oh,
answer.
yes, it
No is
is.
comforting.
Mhm.
No is good, and when you say
Mhm.
no, don't feel bad about you saying no. You understand why you said no. No is a protector for you and your peace. So when they come with that insight and having some more assessment, they're able to do that. No comes easy. Their boundaries are able to formulate well. Yeah.
I agree. Now, I got to get this in for my folks who, some of us we're overdoers.
Well, yeah. Hmm.
And, now, what can we say for those? How can we help those individuals who have a lot of responsibilities and help them to understand just because we always did it this way, when we come to your house, we know you're going to lay out all this food, it's going to be so nice and all this different things. And you were always working. You understand what I'm saying? And you were raising a kid and you made it look easy. Well, the kids may be gone, but you picked up more responsibilities, got a new job, whatever. But everybody's expecting it to be the way it's always been, and you're feeling this rush, like, how am I going to make this happen? Because you're on overload. What sort of practical advice can we provide for those people who are dreading the holidays because they know that they can't provide? They just don't have the time to make these hand gifts like they've been doing for the last 20 years. They got time for that no more.
Well, some of it is, why are they doing that? Why are they overloading? Why are they wanting to be overwhelmed and stressed and cooking and doing all those things? So it might be, some of that might be for their own selfish reasons first. We got to distinguish
Mhm,
that. Secondly, I'm going to go back to my number one jewel. We have to communicate. Everybody's gone. I need y'all to start. It's okay to say, can y'all start bringing a dish over
Delegate.
so it won't be so heavy? It's okay that we do that. I want to have more. I want to have more of that family unit, but also, you want to enjoy your family, and you can enjoy if you're still in the kitchen cooking and baking pies and you're trying to set
mhm,
up and decorate 2 weeks before, and then it takes you 3 days to clean up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some of that is underlining issues of other things. So,
mhm, mhm.
hmm
I
Delegation
see
is
you know your
what
head.
I was going to say.
yeah.
Say it again, Felicia.
I said delegation was what I was going to say. Be open to releasing some of that, of letting go. And sometimes people have trouble doing that. It's just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
control of, I know if I do it, that it's going to be right. So just let me do it because I know it's going to be right and I know how I like it. And then some people are just programmed on go. If you come to my home, I want to take care of everything. And I just want you to have a nice experience. I don't even want you to help me with the dishes. You just go and enjoy yourself. I got this. I'm gonna take care of it. And then they're exhausted at the end. Hello, lights. I'm talking about me. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. Uh, uh, Shonda.
Listen, I can totally agree. Because, sometimes, and I'm not to the extreme, but I feel like if I do it, it'll be done the way I want it to be done and this, that, and other. But sometimes we have to relinquish and release
There you go.
because
Yep.
naturally, we as individuals, we want to control things, right?
Mhm,
Naturally.
But we
Yep.
have to understand there are those uncontrollable
mhm,
variables and those controllable variables. And some things we don't have to control. It's not for us to control. So we got to have that self awareness and have that self talk to ourselves.
Right.
Look, girl, sit down somewhere. You doing too
You
much.
Doing
doing
too much.
too much.
Doing too
And
much.
be open to a new way.
Hmm.
Just be open to a new way.
Mhm, mhm. And
And it doesn't
You'll be
have to be
surprised how much
perfect.
you like it. Yeah.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be perfect. I
be
think
perfect.
we have conditioned our minds. Our minds have been conditioned by society and other people
Mhm,
that it has to be this way. No, it doesn't. And I could talk about this on and on and on and on. But mindfulness really has put me in a place
Mm.
where I'm just in a state of being. It doesn't have to be this or that.
mhm,
And that's a
Hmm.
great technique for people to,
mhm,
think
That's good.
about,
Hmm.
you know,
mhm.
being
Hmm.
mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very
Very much
nice.
so.
you're very right
Mindfulness.
there. Um, and I'm trying to hit the different categories of people. For those who have lost someone that they care about, what are some kind ways to honor their feelings and still find moments of joy?
So, you can always, whatever that person, that loved one that has transitioned on, you can do the things that they loved to do while they were living. And you can just have that, and just do a memorial of whatever that is.
Mhm,
If that's dancing, if that's cooking, if it was a favorite dish today, I honor you with this lasagna. And this is
mhm,
what I want to do. And you can make a big to do about it and do whatever you want to do. Because here again, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you
but you.
and what you're doing.
So,
And if no one
Dr.
else
Paz,
understands, it's
Yeah.
can
okay.
I interject right here and just say, and can I just ask, please, Dr. Gibson, could you please share with us maybe what that looks like, what maybe you did recently? Not to take over Dr. Taz's show, but Dr.
Okay.
Gibson, could you just share that,
I
please?
will
If that's
share.
okay with you,
Oh
Dr.
yeah.
Taz, if that's okay. Okay,
Okay,
please
so
give us an
uh
example.
the year of 2005, my son was killed in a car accident on Christmas Eve. And so those years were very up and down, wavy. I was angry. I was the Scrooge. I did not like any person. Ooh, people. I didn't like them. But God gave me the ability to continue to move forward. And now I'm at a place where there is beauty beyond grief. You know, it is beautiful. So, what I did on his birthday celebration, I went on Instagram Live and I did a tribute to him. And I had some things I talked about and some things that had shown me through life and reflecting back that he was just an angel God had gifted me with.
Mhm.
And so then we had prayer. His sister came in, she prayed, and then we lit a cupcake, one of his favorite cupcakes, and we blew out the candle. It was happy birthday. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I did. So, and it didn't have to make sense because I do have people that don't understand grief. I'm at a different level than most people
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
And they get angry with it. How dare you smile and be happy? And I understand and I meet them where they are, but that's what I did because each year is different. Each year we do
Yes.
something different. We do something different.
And
Yeah,
and what I always remind people is individuals are not with us physically,
that's right.
but they're still with us.
There you go.
So, if I want to, like you were talking about, cook their favorite dish, if I want to make some armor palmer
Yeah,
or Arnold Palmer or
whatever.
whatever it is, and
Right,
pour a glass for them, and because we used to drink it together
Right.
and
right.
watch our favorite
That's
movie,
right.
that's okay
That's
because
right.
that's how I am spending time with my memory, spending time with that person because
Yeah.
they're always in my heart. So I
Yes.
shouldn't have to, oh, I'm not going to justify it.
That's
Shouldn't have. I'm not
right.
going to
You don't
justify
have
it.
to.
I'm going to do it the
Absolutely.
way I want to do it because that's my loved one.
That's right.
And
Hmm.
so I think that you're doing that. And as you said, every year is different. It helps people to understand that you can interface with your grief or that loss or the remembering, the memorial of that person,
Absolutely.
however you want to do it. But
Yeah.
it's your
Right.
life. But I think that goes back to your word, though, insight,
Mm-hmm.
because you talked about insight. And I think that that is so important. I hate to bring our session to a close, but I got to bring it to a close. But
It was good.
I
Ooh.
know,
It's
and I
always
should have
a good
said,
conversation with Dr. Thomas.
it's always good. And like Shonda was talking about that mindfulness, I want to jump in it, but that's not the topic for tonight. But it's a good
She's
topic.
coming back.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
because mindfulness makes a big difference. But, this insight that you said repeatedly, or you implied, you talked about assessment, Tenyeka, and then I think it was Dr. Shonda that talks about relinquish and release.
Yes.
Well, you can't relinquish and release until you got some insight, you've done some assessment.
Absolutely.
And it's like,
Mm.
I don't know why.
Absolutely.
I don't know why people of color are resistant to that. And I don't know why
Mm.
learned people are
Mm.
resistant to
That's
that.
Mm.
right.
I don't understand it, but it impacts everything that you do in your life.
That's right.
And a lot of
Mhm.
people think life is happening to them, but it's
Mm.
not happening to them. It's because they don't have any insight or they got the insight, but they don't want to do what they need to do to relinquish and release so that their life can be balanced and they can enjoy it and they can be fruitful. And
Amen.
regardless of what relationship it is or what gathering, it's a good gathering.
Yeah.
But that means I got to do some work.
That's
And
it.
I don't understand why. I just don't get it. This is a conversation for another time.
Please,
But
we'll
that's
pick
what
up.
I was hearing
Mm-hmm.
because all of that impacts when we come together, not just in the wintertime and for Christmas, but when we come
All year.
together with our friends and with our
Right.
family.
Mhm.
Absolutely correct. Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to get back on and have some conversation
Okay.
about that because I think, particularly as we go into the new year, that's a good foundation to get people thinking differently about what the new year means, new
Okay.
beginning. But
Right.
Yes.
I got
Right.
Yes.
to do the work and have in order to have a new beginning.
Yeah. You have
That's
to be
good.
honest with yourself, but we'll pick up later.
We'll
We're
pick
gonna
it
have to
up. Yeah.
pick up.
Yeah, you got to be honest with yourself. So I just want to say I have enjoyed our session tonight. I want to
Yeah,
thank you,
that's
Felicia. for bringing us all together. Tenyeka, thank you for being back on the show with me. And thank you, Dr. Shonda, for joining us for the first time. Hopefully it won't be the last time. But to our audience, thank you for hanging in with us. Thank you for your feedbacks, your comments, your hearts, because that lets us know that we're talking about a topic that needs more discussion. And as someone said, that emotional intelligence, but we can't have emotional intelligence when we don't even want to do the insight and the assessment.
Yes.
So
All right.
therefore, because emotional intelligence is a wonderful tool, but that means I got to do some work
That's right.
To get
beforehand in
there.
order to utilize it.
That's right.
And that's what we've got to begin to look at as to why that doesn't occur.
That's
And
correct.
we'll explore it in 2025. But again, I want to thank you ladies for being with me. And remember, before you take care of anyone else, make sure you take care of yourself first. Bye now.
Bye
Thank you, Dr.
bye.
Charles.
Bye
You're very
Happy
bye.
welcome.
Thank you
holidays.
so
Happy
much. Happy
holidays,
holidays.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.